People of free democratic countries cannot understand that mindset because it is not a free democratic country. You have never felt a f- mm, a feeling of choice. You have never felt it. You have always had this one czar, and you've always under your parents. They grow their children already like that. It's like, oh, shut up, I'm gonna hit you. So ever since bringing up, everyone there doesn't have a choice of freedom. They do what they have to do. They shut up when they have to shut up. When Tsar tells them to go die and feel patriotic, they do that. So there's not a conflict in that, actually, to go and die for your Tsar. And this is what we in the West don't understand, and it benefits the Russian system because we put our energy into why are they doing this, but we should just protect ourselves. So there's nothing new about it. They've always died for their czars ever since 500 years ago. So that's how it is. It's just their mindset. We don't understand it, but we can destroy everything that comes over that border, and that's what we do in Estonia.
So, folks, today I have a special treat for you. I'm meeting with Artur Rehi. Artur is when I think of who's out there in YouTube as a UA tuber. I think Dennis Davdov, Artur. I think Jake Bro. I like these are the names that come right to my mind, and so it's a privilege to have him here with me. I'm going to ask him a number of questions that have been uh, at me, but first I want to introduce you to him. I don't want to assume that you know him, although you probably know him. Many of you already do know him and watch him regularly. So Artur is an Estonian reserve soldier. He delivers aid regularly to Ukraine, and his channel has almost 700,000 subscribers. So, Artur, for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, about how you got to this place where you're actually talking about Ukraine on YouTube.
Well, I went to Estonian Infantry Battalion, Kuperian of Infantry Battalion as a conscript in 2018, and that was only 8 months. So after that, I started doing military videos from the army. Actually, I already did them kind of illegally, and then they kind of liked it, so they hired me. And when I got out, it was 2019. Then I continued up until 22 when the full-scale invasion started. And from day one, I continued with the live streams and videos, and I haven't stopped ever since until Ukraine wins.
So Jake Bro was doing a financial kind of thing. Dennis Davdov was doing some travel blog. I was doing something about leadership that nobody watched, but it was interesting to me. Before that, what was going on?
I started YouTube 2011, so by that point, I already been a YouTuber about 10 years, 1,500 videos in. So yeah, it has been my whole life basically
Yeah, yeah.
ever
So
since I
you have
got like 15.
you have some deep back. Like when I watch your show, I'm like, man, I look like an amateur. I mean, you have everything done really, really well, and mine is very clunky in comparison. Like you can tell the professional grade level when you're watching that. So tell me what your sweet spot is. I can't quite tell. I know you have the military background, and you can run circles around me in military kind of analysis, but you also seem really comfortable talking about, especially European politics. So where is your zone of competence?
It's a lot of it comes from reading the comments also because I have viewers from ages 20 to 80. Honestly, if I see my demographics at 60, 70, 80 years old also, who are extremely knowledgeable and smart, and if I do make mistakes, they do actually fix them in the comments, and I do read them. So for me, it's like a very quick way to knowledge in that way
Mhm.
because professionals of every area are fixing my mistakes. So through my viewers, I've gained some more knowledge about politics and military because I really don't, I have no education about either of these things actually. So
But your training as a soldier has helped you see things that so I don't have. I was an Army ROTC for 2 years before President Clinton killed my program with the peace dividend, right? So that's as far as that went for me. So you have a little bit more expertise there. So as an Estonian, you see the world perhaps differently than I do as an American. I would imagine living in a country that was enfolded into the Soviet Union, there's a real animosity from the Baltic states and Poland toward Russia, right? So how does that shape the way that you see things?
it definitely does because being next to Russia, you have It's not 1,000, but it's at least 600 years of Russian occupation and Russian war crimes. So for us, it's not many generations; it's many centuries of history with that. So there's nothing new about the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Of course, Western Europe is surprised, and then they cannot their heads around how could anybody do this in 21st century. For us, it's just a repetition of a pattern that is half a millennia old. So for me, nothing new about it. I'm used to it. We're all used to it here, and we know how to deal with it. I'm just hoping Western European leaders catch up.
So yeah, you said Western Europe surprised, and I think there are some Americans that are in that kind of camp as well. The isolationist wing that's just going, oh, nothing. Oh, let them work out. It's just a territorial dispute. It's nothing to say. Like, but I think from where you sit, you have a better grasp of the Russian mindset. Can you tell us about the difference between the way that we might look at it, especially across the pond, and the Russian way of looking at things, and where we're wrong? When I say we, I mean
Mm.
me and Americans looking at it from a distance. If we just do this, Putin will do that.
I don't I don't think Americans are wrong. They have given 60 billion of military aid to Ukraine, and if they don't want to give any more, that's also fine because it's European Union. We have to protect our borders, not America. So whatever US does in Europe, if it's to help or not to help, they're not wrong. They should focus on their own interests, and if there's more resources among uh, from that, then they can allocate it elsewhere. If they want to help Israel, that's fine also. We have in Europe the necessary money and political will to protect our own borders and produce more tanks than Russia ever could in a millennia. It
Mhm.
is about political will. We are a powerhouse, European Union. The leaders just haven't decided to do that yet. If they will, then Russia is done. And I see that happening slowly because democracies are slow. But like Second and First World War showed, if they finally gear into wartime mode, nothing can stand against them. So that's where I stand, and that's why I'm a little bit more relaxed than other. Like people see me doing this, they're like, "Why are you so? Why don't you care?" Or I do care, but if you look at history, then if democratic nations unite and start to produce and switch to military procurement, there's not no country in the world that can get against that. So I see that happening in Europe.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about the 60 billion, for example, and you've had that continual stance through for a while now. I mean, like we almost look like if we just don't push Putin, he'll stop his aggression. That's what I mean, where we get things wrong. Like he's a bully who's going to keep stopping. You said this has been going on for 700 years, right? Like there's something in that Russian culture that we overlook from where we are. Like, wow, he wouldn't do that. That was my stance. That's what I thought in February 21st, February 22nd, February 23rd. He's not going to do that. February 24th, I changed my tune, right? Because I
Mhm.
realized, no, he's going to do that. Like, in your estimation, if Putin prevails in Ukraine, he's going further, right? Or am I wrong?
Oh yeah, he's going further, but he doesn't prevail because European leaders will. Well, there's a slow waking up, and
Mhm.
the numbers and statistics they don't compare. Russia doesn't compare with the European Union. They doesn't compare with America. They're not really a military powerhouse. If you look at them, it's all a great bluff, and it works until people are scared. I'm not scared, so I see through it. I have no issues. I know we will stop them. So they're not gonna win in Ukraine. They're on
So
the path of losing. Yeah.
I've been arguing that while Putin has nukes, he can't use them. Right? It's like if you have a grenade and you get into a bar fight, you can't use the grenade. It just doesn't like you still have to fight like have a conventional fight. You just can't use that. And I think that's where Putin is. He's bluffing. He's hiding behind that thing, but he it's not something he can actually do. Okay, I want to shift gears. I'm curious about how do you do what you do? Like what's your process? Um how do you decide what's important? How do you decide what you're going to present? What, what is it? Tell us how you sift through everything that needs to be sift through in order to focus us on the things that you focus on.
Well, I'm a human being like everybody. So if I make a video, the main goal is not to only give information, but to defend people against Russian disinformation campaigns, and the only way to do that is to share this information about the war while making people feel good. So this way, I choose videos that give daily news, but if I have enough of them, oh, now I have 25-minute videos, but I don't have any human aspect to it, or nothing cute, or nothing to take down the psychological boundaries, then I'll find some of that. So I try to keep it balanced. If it's too gruesome, I'll try to add some news about cute puppies or Ukrainian singers or whatever. We're humans. We need this kind of stuff. We cannot watch war and tanks and people keep being blown up all the time. So I try to balance it out to make it more human to watch. Because if people get desensitized, that's only good for Putin. So I'm fighting against that.
Right? How many times have you been to Ukraine?
7, yeah, 7.
How'd that get started? And tell us a little bit about that.
Uh, Last year, 23 February, I started doing fundraisers with an Estonian crew, and we did really good with the fundraisers, and my viewers also really liked them. And I provide footage of everything I do, so that creates trust within people. And I deliver the things myself. It's not like I just give the money to some big organization that loses it to a bottomless pit. I take the money, I buy the things, I deliver them, I film every step of the way. I film me handing over the drone to the soldier. People like that. I like that. It's corruption proof in any way. So that's why we do it. And right now, another fundraiser is going on, actually.
You
I
tell
launched
us
it in.
about your most recent fundraiser and other fundraisers that you've been a part of.
The recent one is first fundraiser. We buy drones with every fundraiser, but this is the first one that they're Estonian drones, because DJI is not good. People should not buy that because China owns DJI, and in China, every company is suspect to Communist Party laws, and if they want, they can get intel from it, and they leak it to Russia by accident. So, and they have a right to switch off the GPS or switch off the DJI drones if they want to. So we're going to fight against that by producing NATO standard Estonian drones. And this is the first one for that.
Was it your last video or the video before that you were talking about the drones? It was very recent.
Yeah, it was Friday when I launched it. Friday, yeah. We're going to buy 5 or 6 drones. They're quite expensive, and then 5 or 6 trucks. One drone is as expensive as the truck, and the truck usually is 20K because we don't buy rubbish. We buy everything that doesn't work here, doesn't work in Ukraine, so it has to work perfectly.
So what other fundraisers have you been a part of, and how do you get it started with the fundraisers?
I've been all of the fundraisers I've done are my own. I haven't done any like other people's fundraisers. I do it on my own. I set them up. Six of them. Yeah, like now it's $600,000 we have gathered. I mean, my viewers have donated, and all of it has
Wow.
been put to trucks, drones, night visions. It's all delivered except for the last one. So yeah.
Wow, 600,000. That's pretty amazing. Tell me, you've been paying attention through the war. So what's been your biggest takeaway? Like if you could summarize everything as one, like, wow, this is the big important thing. What comes to your mind?
It's it's hard to see that people are afraid, because fear is Putin's biggest weapon. It takes away your grasp of reality, and if you really see the Russian army what it is, it's not, it's a paper tiger. It's so easy to defeat them in every battle almost. But if you're afraid, then it becomes an issue. Ukrainians are not afraid; they fight really good. But Western Europe is. I don't, they're afraid. They're afraid. The Soviet Union fear is still in them, and the parents are giving it down to their children. And Scholz is afraid, and like, yeah, for some reason, look, we're next to Russia. We don't even have a big army and stuff. I'm not afraid of them because I know that I can take 10 of them with me because they really cannot fight good. They're quite bad at it. But fear is doing a lot. Disinformation campaigns are doing a lot. But the honest truth is, if Europe would take this war as seriously as Russia, there would not be any
Yeah.
more Russia. So
But
I, don't- you know,
that would also mean that that you supply them with the artillery, right? Artillery builds confidence.
yeah.
And unless you actually supply them with they'll take the fight to the Russians and they'll do pretty well compared to these weird meat wave attacks. I don't understand how Russian soldiers are okay with just being sent forward. Maybe they're not okay, but they don't have a choice. I don't know. Just being sent forward to their slaughter. I can't comprehend it. Like, you would think a survival instinct or something would kick in, but Can you help me understand what's going on the ground like that?
Uh, People of free democratic countries cannot understand that mindset because it is not a free democratic country. You have never felt a f- mm, a feeling of choice. You have never felt it. You have always had this one czar, and you've always under your parents. They grow their children already like that. It's like, oh, shut up! I'm gonna hit you. So ever since bringing up, everyone there doesn't have a choice of freedom. They do what they have to do. They shut up when they have to shut up. When Target tells them to go die and feel patriotic, they do that. So there's not a conflict in that, actually, to go and die for your Tsar. And this is what we in the West don't understand, and it benefits the Russian system because we put our energy into why are they doing this, but we should just protect ourselves. So there's nothing new about it. They've always died for their czars ever since 500 years ago. So that's how it is. It's just their mindset. We don't understand it, but we can destroy everything that comes over that border, and that's what we do in Estonia.
Yeah, I really don't understand that, but that's a great explanation. Um, because they've never experienced that before, they don't seem to know any better or wow, that's
I
okay.
mean, it has always been life. It was life for their parents, grandparents. Everybody in Russia has lived this kind of life. If the order comes, you go and die. Nothing else existed there. So what's new about that? Why should they rebel against that if it has been like that for generations? What are you going to fight against? Your parents
Right.
died for your country, grandparents.
And so you can see the contrast from Estonia. I've not been to Estonia. I've been to as close as Lithuania, and I was in Lithuania 10 years after. So in 2001, I was in Lithuania, and I would imagine it's probably a similar kind of something where they were just like they were experiencing freedom, but they hadn't really kind of fully connected everything yet, and so they were really moving headlong. But they would still say periodically things like, "We just need one good leader to lead us." No, no, that's not it. But they were really moving the right direction toward liberty, toward freedom, toward all the kinds of productive ways of moving their society. But they still had kind of the Soviet mindset. We called it the Soviet hangover when I was there, right? And it was you could see it distinctly in the older generation. Really was locked into kind of this like almost missing Soviet times, and the younger generation was like, "We're never doing that." Like, that was terrible. And so there
Hmm.
was this,
Hmm.
like, cutoff at, like, 35 or so, maybe 40 that could really see the contrast. Was that your experience in Estonia?
Oh yeah, I mean, the ugly truth about it is that you don't change an old dog; they just have to die. That's it. They die of their old age, then their ways die. It's not like they have to be killed. Them like they're happy in this new country, but you're always nostalgic about your youth. So it's fine. They can be. The young are leading Estonia, the young are leading Latvia and Lithuania, so they don't have that political power to change this stuff. But they will always cry uh, behind their when they were 20 and everything was beautiful in the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
It's nostalgia, and cannot take that away. Time will fix that. Generations will fix that.
Yeah. Okay, so I asked you what your biggest takeaway was and what you learned. Tell me what have you gotten wrong over time? That's an interesting question that helps us, like, see a little bit broader. What did you get wrong in your analysis over time? It's a hard question too.
Yeah, I've gotten many things wrong. Um, I make mistakes in every video almost, and the thing is, people point them out, and it's free education. Hell yeah, I guess their YouTube comments are very short and compact, so I get a way of educating myself about my interested topics in a very compact way. I love that stuff. My brain is like ADHD. I can just like read, study, study. Boom, I'm smart. I
Mhm.
don't have to like. I love that. So I do make mistakes all the time. If you want any specific ones, then I've made mistakes about where Russians are going to attack, when is the economy going to collapse, or if at all. Even at the beginning, I always knew they're going to use the meat wave tactics, but I thought that the losses are going to have an effect in the Russian society. Well, now I fully understand that it doesn't. That's fine. They are used
Yeah.
to taking these losses. So I make mistakes all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but those things are really instructive to us to help us understand our own worldview, how we see things. Um, okay, so you were talking about the French just the other day, and Macron is talking about potentially NATO troops on the ground. I mean, is that potentially a thing, do you think? Or do you think that the Western Europeans particularly will say, "No, no, we don't wanna push a Russian red line," or what do you think? I know you don't have a crystal ball, I understand that, but do you think that will happen?
Uh, Macron said yesterday, or was it today, that he doesn't really need NATO's, the United States approval to send troops as a sovereign country as France. And
Mhm.
since French is still a hidden imperium, since they have African holdings and everything, and Russia is actually questioning them in Africa right now, so their motives are definitely not only defense of democracy but also defense of their own states in Africa, which still, they're the only empire in Europe left which has pretty much holdings or connected states in Africa, and now Wagner is moving in them. So they have their own motives, which coincidentally help Ukraine. So I'm all for them. But yeah, I think if they want to, they can send troops. And Shoigu actually called yesterday to French defense minister. It was the first time this call happened over 22 months. So the first actual call, because they are worried. The Russians are worried because like they know they have no chance against a Western military on the ground. Because the simple, robust truth is that Russians, they know how to die well, but they don't know how to fight well. The
It's a
Western
great
military is,
line.
yeah, yeah. French fight really good actually. If we forget about all the memes that they surrender every time, they
French
actually
Foreign
fight really
Legion was
good.
no joke. I mean, that yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so just quick couple other questions. So you're in Estonia, and so you have a pretty good perspective of this. How has Sweden and Finland's joining NATO changed the dynamics in the Black Sea for Russia? Because so Russia's being squeezed because like if Russia loses in Ukraine and loses Sevastopol or Sevastopol, I'm never sure how to pronounce anything. I'm terrible with this. It, it hurts their Black Sea fleet significant. I mean, like what they can do, but what just happened with Finland and Russia with the Goddard Island. What's the name of the island right in the center between
Scotland, I think.
Gotland?
Scotland,
Yeah,
yeah.
like if I was Russia, I'd be much more nervous now than I would have been 2 years ago in the Baltic in that area. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Finland is Europe's biggest artillery, biggest reserve army, and they have the Winter War experience behind them when they, I mean, they didn't win the Winter War, but they truly kicked Stalin's ass there. So Putin knows that part of history. He has respect for the Finnish for that. He's afraid of the Finnish, and Finnish are not the people to be messed with. They're, yeah, Putin doesn't want to mess with them, and he suddenly has 1,000 kilometers of border with Finland, which has really poor infrastructure for him. So moving any kind of troops there is almost impossible. Finland has always been ready to fight in the snow. That's what they've been. That's their life. So if there is any kind of conflict, Russia is done for. So they have no interest in igniting anything close to Northern Europe anymore. Now that Sweden, one of the biggest weapons exporters in the world, and Finland, Europe's biggest artillery and reserve army, and right on their doorstep in NATO. So, in my eyes, yeah, war is going on, people are panicking, but my life here in Estonia got a lot more secure after the
Yeah,
war in Ukraine.
I would imagine with
Oh,
the way
yeah.
that that's like this is like Putin lost more territory trying to take Ukraine in Finland and Sweden becoming NATO than it's bizarre
It's
to
really
watch.
worked out so horribly for him. Like, things are really bad for Russia. People want to hold on to their fear and their idea that Russia is this great, powerful state. They're a fading empire. They're in a way for collapse. So there's nothing great or big about it. Their army cannot fight. They're horribly corrupt. It's a matter of time. Might take decade, 2 decades. It's a slow process. Doesn't happen fast. But there's no way with current system they can come out of this.
So if you look in your crystal ball, you're predicting very clearly that Russia. Do you have any idea of how that works? A battlefield, or like my sense is that it's not the battlefield, but something internally in Russia breaks because of all the fighting in Ukraine because they can't sustain it either economically or politically. And I can't exactly, I would bet on more economically than politically, but that's what I think is going to come down the pike. What do you see?
Yeah, I also think that. I don't think people are going to revolt or something, but I think since Russia is led not by Putin but by the FSB, and since Putin just is in the FSB's interest, so if things will change, then the leader will change. Russia will have one leader. They cannot be a democracy. It's just, I mean, go try and make Afghanistan a democracy. $2 trillion later, it's the same mindset.
Right.
It takes a
Yeah,
millennium to
that's
build up a democracy. So
yeah. Yeah, that's a
yeah.
really good thought. That's powerful. Okay, so I want to switch gears at the end. If you haven't seen Artur Rehi, go to at Artur Artur, not Arthur, Artur Rehi, Rehi. Uh, Go there and you can find him on YouTube. We talked briefly back and forth because after I stuck up for Warthog, because when he was being taken down by YouTube, people contact me whenever something happens like this. We just had Joe blogs, and I was talking with reporting from Ukraine about their channel being demonetized. We were in contact briefly as well with Patreon. Are you ever planning to go back to Patreon? Or are you pretty happily ensconced with Buy Me a Coffee now?
Uh, I found out only after my Patreon was deleted that they operate in Russia. Like then I started looking into, okay, why did they do this to me? And oh, they operate in Russia. Now I have no intention of going back, because I
Gotcha.
mean they're funding a terrorist state if they operate there and generate revenue there. So yeah, I'm not going back.
Okay. So what happened? What was the triggering event, and what caused that to fall apart?
The trigger event was when I make a weekly sitrep situational report about to my patrons what I do in this week, and I usually call the Russians the occupiers. Yes, like I make these videos this week about the occupiers in Ukraine, and this is hate speech for Patreon because they have been systematically throwing away pro-Russian reporters, which are pro-Ukrainian, sorry, pro-Ukrainian military bloggers, and I'm one of them. So it was my turn, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's not a truer term that you can use other than occupiers. I mean that is in fact what is happening. Just yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I told you we'd stick to the half hour, and I want to be good to my word. Thank you very much for your time. And is there anything last little bit that you would like to share with my audience? I really appreciate you being willing to do the interview.
Thank you for having me, and thank you also for making these videos and raising awareness about the whole situation. I mean, knowledge is and people's education about this war is what fights against Putin's disinformation campaigns the most efficiently.
Yeah.
It takes away fear. If you know, you see through fear, there's no fear. So you're also part of it. So we're on the same team. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.